All right, welcome to the first Fusion 360 tutorial. If you're joining us because you're participating in Design to Make a Difference, welcome. If you're joining us because you are participating in our new Access Innovation Program, welcome. If you just happen to find us, on the internet, welcome as well. We are starting this CAD program off really starting at the basics and kind of working our way up through some more complex design elements. So this first video, we're just going to kind of get to learn to know Fusion, the layout of the program, and then we're going to start by looking at some technical drawings. Those technical drawings look a lot like this or this, right? So we're going to be jumping back and forth. Look at the drawing, think about how we want to make it, and then going through the steps in Fusion to go ahead and bring it to fruition. So we're going to come back to this drawing. I'll let you look at it for a second. I have no idea what this is. I think it is nothing. I would call it a widget, but we're going to go ahead and use some of the buttons on Fusion 360 to model this in 3D. All right, so this is Fusion 360. When you open it up, this is usually what the screen looks like. I'll navigate all the different spaces, and let's start with the top. So right now, this is all of the screen that you can see. But if I start at the top left in this thing that looks like a tic-tac-toe box, it's called the data panel. And if I click on it, it opens up kind of my files, if you will. And I have a decent amount that I've been working on over those last couple of years. I don't always want this open, so I can go ahead and close it. But when I save a file, it's going to go somewhere in here. And I can kind of choose where I want it to go. Next, I have all my kind of classic, almost like Word document-like buttons to click on. When I move down to the second menu, there's a few different workspaces you can design in. I am starting in the design workspace. I've just opened it up so you can have an example of what some of them are. We might talk about some of them later, definitely not in this video. At the top, we have our menus. We have a variety of menus, and right now we're in the solid menu. And it's underlined in blue, and I see all of these like three-dimensional icons are in blue as well. If I click on some of these others, I'm going to see that the color and the kind of shape of those icons change, even though some of those words don't. So we see create and modify stays the same. Create, modify. So really there's only a couple of menus we're going to be in, and we're going to stay in solid, and we're going to start in solid, and we're going to be in solid for a really long time. To the left, we have the browser that I can kind of mess with some of the clicking on some of these arrows. A lot of generic kind of CAD terminology. It's often called like the feature tree. There's not much happening here, but wherever there are arrows, we can kind of click on them and open up different menus that might be kind of held like inside them. Right now, there's not a lot going on because we haven't done anything, but you'll see as we populate our three-dimensional world with sketches and features, different kind of tabs and menus and folders will start to open, and we'll have access to them. Far to the right, we have the view cube. I can click on some of these words if I want to. I can click on some of these arrows and I can change my view, or I can actually hold in my left click and grab and use my mouse or trackpad. God help you if you're using a trackpad. To kind of manipulate and move my three-dimensional world. Again, it's a little hard to see right now. I just see this grid that's moving around because I really haven't done anything. When I look at the bottom menus, I see my timeline. Again, I see this little cursor here that it looks like I could move. I see what looks like an old school like iPod, play, rewind, fast forward, skip. There's nothing down here for me to do anything, but later on you're going to see again as we go through step by step, Fusion is going to record the order that we do things, and we can actually go back in time and make changes. It's a really cool feature of what's referred to as parametric design. Last but not least, above the timeline, I have some other kind of commands that I can do, whether it's orbit, pan, zoom. I can kind of change the layout and the display. A lot of this is redundant if you're using a mouse as well. So I try to highlight when I'm using those as well. But we're going to go ahead and jump right into it. I'm going to go back and look at this first image that I have up here. And the number one thing you can do in your CAD modeling is to try to have a logical plan. Where am I going to start? What steps am I going to take? I am not making this out of like virtual clay, right? I am making this out of two-dimensional sketches that I am then going to have features that turn them into three-dimensional shapes. You can think about this like a tube of toothpaste. The opening is a circle, and if I squeeze the toothpaste out, I now have a cylinder. The two-dimensional shape was the circle. The three-dimensional shape was the cylinder. And there's a variety of ways to end up with the shape you're looking for. In fact, there's probably not a right way to model whatever this thing is. There's probably a variety of ways. Some might be more efficient and effective, but in the end of the day, if you have the correct shape with the correct dimensions, you win. So if you are looking at this, I bet you can see some different two-dimensional shapes. I bet you can see triangles and rectangles and circles. I'm going to start with a really big rectangle that's going to represent the base of this. I'm going to do my best to highlight the dimensions of that rectangle. This 60, and I'm just going to assume it's millimeters. That's what Fusion defaults to. This is going to be one side of my rectangle. And I'm going to do some math. It looks like that if I take 9 and 12 and then another 9 that's kind of implied over here. 9 and 9 is 18. 18 plus 12 is 30. So I have a rectangle. You're going to hear my dog from time to time. She's awesome. I have a rectangle that is 60 by 30 millimeters. All right, we're back. Sorry about that. So we're going to go ahead and start with a 60 by 30 rectangle. Now, right now, we are actually in what looks to be three-dimensional options. And we want to start with a two-dimensional rectangle. So the first thing we are almost always going to do every step of the way is go under Create. Now, there's a lot of default options up here. And Fusion's pretty intuitive in picking the ones that you might want to use and going from left to right in terms of when you might want to use them. But under Create, the first thing we want to do is create a sketch. When I click on that, one thing I want you to notice is now all of a sudden I have these yellowish planes that pop up. They were always there. And in the middle is referred to as the origin. It's the center of my virtual universe. It really doesn't matter what plane I pick, right? But if you were trying to think about this logically, like top, bottom, right? I'm going to go ahead and pick this plane right here, which kind of represents the top. Anytime you create a sketch, when you click on it, you're going to see that it orients your view so you're staring perpendicular at it. My menus at the top have all changed now, and now they all look like two-dimensional sketches or constraints or things that under the Modify menu, they've all shifted a little bit to be more two-dimensional. I don't see any rectangles. I see a circle, but under Create, I have a rectangle. And there's actually 3 different ways to make a rectangle. We might not cover all of them. We might cover some depending on kind of the logical steps we take. But my number one tip is to always try to design around the origin, because most of the things you make are going to be symmetrical. And we're going to take advantage of that symmetry around the origin later on. So I'm going to start with a center rectangle. I'm going to go ahead and, as you can see, when I now have clicked on that center rectangle, I have a little icon that pops up next to the cursor, and I have like this little crosshair. So it asks me to place the center point. I'm going to click once throughout these tutorials, you're going to hear me talk about how many times I'm clicking. Am I left clicking? Am I right clicking? So try to take advantage of that. If you have to hit the pause button and think about it, if you have to rewind and listen to it again, go for it. So I'm going to click once, and I'm going to just drag my mouse around. And as you can see, I could, if I had like the most dexterous hands of all time, I could probably get this really close to 60 by 30. But I don't have to do that. I can go ahead and I can just type in the values in these little kind of windows that are open. So I'm going to make that 30. To get to the other window, I hit the tab button, and I'm going to make that 60. Now, if I would hit enter, return, I'd be good to go. And I'm going to go ahead and do that. Now, as you can see, those dimensions are there, and my rectangle has turned black. That means my sketch is fully defined. Everything Fusion needs to know about where this sketch is, how big is it, what does it represent, is there. If sketches are ever blue, then they're not fully defined. And later on, when you try to like manipulate them or add them, they might cause some like errors. So you really want to try to have fully defined sketches as much as you can. I'm going to go ahead and undo this. I'm going to show you one more way that I can go ahead and make my rectangle 60 by 30. I could have just accidentally, I mean, sometimes I've worked with students, they click so fast, it's unbelievable. And they click, and I have no idea how big that rectangle is because I didn't have a chance to actually type in the dimensions. The second tool we're going to learn about is at the end of this kind of create menu. It's called the sketch dimension tool. Probably the most important tool that exists in all of CAD, and it exists in every CAD package. So I'm going to click on it, and again, you can kind of see that the icon next to the cursor changed. And I'm going to click once on a line, and I'm going to move and drag, and I'm going to click a second time. And now that window pops up, and I can go ahead and type in 60. And I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to go to the other line, and I'm going to click once, and I'm going to drag, and that window pops up, and I'm going to go ahead and type 30. I don't need to put any other dimensions. By definition of a rectangle, right, you have these like parallel lines that are 90 degrees between one another. And if it's 30 on that kind of line to the left, it's 30 on the line to the right, and so on. So by picking rectangle, I've kind of, Fusion knows the geometry. Anytime I want to get out of a tool, right now I'm still stuck in sketch dimension mode, I can just hit the escape button, which is awesome. I'm going to preview something later on. Let's say we designed this part. It was awesome, except it was just a little too small. I don't have to start over, right? In theory, I could come back and I could make changes. So let's say I accidentally typed in 80 instead of 60, or I said 60 and I read it wrong and it was supposed to be 80. All I have to do is go ahead and come up to this number and actually double click on it. And it's going to bring back that menu, and now I can change it. And I can double click on it, and I can change that to whatever I want. So I can go around and I can double click and I can change all of these values once they're in there for the first time. But I'm going to go ahead and leave it as 60 and 30. And I'm going to go ahead and hit finish sketch. This is all I'm going to do in this first sketch. And again, I have this kind of logical thought process of how I want to make this part. And the second thing that I'm going to do when I look at this part is I'm going to make it three-dimensional. I have this rectangle, and I'm going to lift it up so that it represents this kind of 9 millimeter thick base. And I know over here to the left, it's way thicker than 9, and that's fine. But I'm going to go ahead and just lift it up to 9, just so we can get our first three-dimensional feature in. Once I hit end sketch, all of my three-dimensional solid menu options pop back up. And the first one in the default is extrude. And this is where you're going to take a two-dimensional sketch and basically pull it or push it to make it three-dimensional. It's also under the create menu. You can see there's a lot more here. There isn't just those 5 options. So it doesn't matter if I click it up in the default menu or if I come down here and click it. I'm going to go ahead and click extrude. And it highlights in blue the only option I have to extrude. But if I didn't click on that yet, I would have to click on a face or a closed sketch. And when I go ahead and click on that, it turns blue. And now I have the option to use this arrow to kind of drag this if I wanted to. Now, again, I can say pull or push. I want you to notice when I lift this up in this direction, right now it says 50. When I push it down, I now have negative numbers. And this isn't a like less than zero distance. That doesn't exist. You can't have less than zero distance. It's directional. So right now, up, the way I have this oriented is positive and down is negative. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this up. Again, I could type in, I could try to drag it, but I have a couple of different places where I can type this in. I can type it in this window. This kind of menu popped up over here. I can type it in over here as well. Doesn't matter where. I can type in 9 millimeters. And if I start to turn this a little bit and I hold it right maybe in that view, and I'm using the scroll wheel on my mouse to zoom in and out, I'm pushing on the scroll wheel to pan, scroll in, scroll out, push on the scroll wheel and wiggle around. But if I come back to my drawing, I'm close to that kind of orientation. All right. So what do I want to do next? Now is where I have some options. There really isn't a right and wrong way to do it, but I noticed that the front end of this isn't a rectangle. The front end of this has these little kind of triangular cutouts. And I know how big they are. They are 9 by 9. And then that hypotenuse, if you will, is just a line that connects in those two areas. And it's symmetrical. So I'm going to go ahead and do these little 9 by 9 millimeter cutouts next. I need to create a new sketch. I go create sketch. And I'm going to touch the top of the part this time. And then watch how it snaps and orients my view. I'm going to zoom into the area I'm looking for. And I'm going to do this using the line tool. I really only need one line. Now watch what happens when I get close to the edge. Fusion actually kind of grabs onto the cursor and knows I might want to draw there. And it gives me like a place that I can go ahead and select that first point. I'm not really worried about where I'm placing it right now. I'm going to come back in and use the sketch dimension tool to do that. So I'm going to click once. And I'm going to drag till I get over to the other side. And just as long as I'm like touching that edge, I'm going to click again. Now I know this is not correct. There's no way that is where it needs to be. And I'm going to go ahead and hit the escape button to get out of the line tool. Notice this line is blue, which means it is not fully defined. So I'm going to use my sketch dimension tool. And I'm going to use it in a very different way. Instead of talking about how long the line is, I'm going to use it to position the line. I know that from here to there is 9 millimeters. And that one was close. Now I'm going to go over how I do this again. I'm going to click once and let go. And I'm going to come down to this point and I'm going to click a second time. And then I'm going to drag out my mouse and I'm going to click a third time. When I click a third time, it opens up that window. And instead of telling me how long the line is, it moves it so that the point of that line is at that specific location. Notice the line is now turned black. It is fully defined. I hit escape. When I hover my mouse over it, notice it kind of, this side, this little triangular kind of chunk highlights a different color. This highlights a different color. I could now, if I wanted to, get rid of that. I'm going to go ahead and draw the other line as well. There's a couple of different ways we can go ahead about doing this, but I'm just practicing. Line. You know what? Let's try something new. I highlighted this idea about being symmetrical and centered, if you will. So I'm going to draw a line right in the middle of this part. Doesn't matter how long it is. I'm not really going to use it for anything. But I'm going to go ahead and use this tool up here, mirror. It's like the copy paste function almost, but copy and paste in a really kind of cool location that is always equidistant, symmetrical from a certain line. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the mirror button. And it asks me, what object do I want to mirror? I want to go ahead and mirror that line. And then, where is my mirror line? I actually have to come up here into this window and click on that tool to then select that line. And then notice it previews where that line is. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. Now the cool thing is, anytime I change this, it changes the other one as well, because they are essentially kind of linked through this mirror tool. Let me hit Finish Sketch. Now, those look like the lines that represent these cutouts, but I haven't actually cut them out. We are sticking with this extrude tool. I'm going to go ahead and hit extrude. And I can click on more than one. I'm going to click on this one and this one. And if I pull them up, that looks weird, but if I push them down, I want you to see how the color changes. If I pull up, it's this gray. And then right over here to the right, this operation says join. It's basically going to make that part of the solid. And notice when I push down, the preview color changes to red, and the operation is to cut. I'm just going to push that all the way through. And when I hit OK, it has now cut out that section. So I've used lines, I've used rectangles, I've used a mirror tool, and I've used the extrude to either make something solid or to cut something out. And you can see we're getting closer and closer and closer to our actual image. Sorry. All right, so when I look at this shape now, I see a part of a circle and part of a rectangle. I see here this 30 is the diameter, and that's awesome, and that makes sense because 9 plus 12 plus 9 was 30, so this has to be 30 as well. I see a circle on the inside where the radius is 7.5. That means it is a diameter of 15. And then I see this little kind of rectangular portion that is 18. So I'm going to go ahead and do some math. There is a rectangle that is actually 18, and then this line goes through the center. So I would have another 15 to get from here to there. So this is actually 18 plus 15. So I don't have to worry about the 30. That's already built into our model, but I need to figure out where to put that other line. And that is going to be 18 plus 15. Let me do that math. 8 plus 7 is 5. Carry the 1. 18 plus 15 is going to be 33. I'm going to hit Create Sketch. And now I am going to go into that other type of rectangle, the 2-point rectangle, because I know where I want to start. And I know where I want to end, right? So I'm going to go ahead and tab over, and I'm going to make that 33. I'm going to go ahead and hit Enter. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to finish this sketch, and I'm going to look to see on the other drawing. How high to extrude this. So it's 30 from the bottom. We've already gone up 9, so I need to bring it up another 21 millimeters. 9 plus 21 is this total of 30. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the extrude button. I'm going to select just that new rectangle, and I'm going to bring that up 21 millimeters. All right. You can kind of start to see our images taking shape here. I'm going to look at the back of this. The back of it is not squared off. It is rounded off, right? And I'm going to put a circle here. Now that circle has to have a diameter of 30. So I'm going to go ahead back into Fusion, and I'm going to create a new sketch on the top of this model. And I need a circle that kind of touches this line, right? And it's going to touch this line as well, as it's kind of curved. So right now I have a center diameter circle. That might be one that I could use. I have actually had people start with the circular part of this. And that is a great tool to start with. But we're in a position now where it's probably not the best sketch tool. Under Create, there's actually 5 different ways to make a circle. And to me, the one that makes the most sense is the 3 tangent or the 2 tangent circle. Let's try them both. It's rare I use them. So let's go ahead and see if, let's try the 3 tangent, because I technically want a circle that touches all 3 lines. I'm just going to touch all 3 lines. 1, 2, 3. And it is going to put a circle that has a diameter of 30. And I'm going to double check that. I'm going to go all the way, almost all the way to the right up here. And I'm going to check inspect. And when I click on the line, it's going to tell me that it has a diameter of 30. That's awesome. I also see some pretty cool icons that pop up. Right here, this is the tangent constraint. I see it up here as well. And that lets me know that the line kind of touches where I want it to. And if you see, I can kind of highlight certain parts of this circle. I'm actually not going to use the circle. I'm going to use this little kind of arrowhead triangle with the curve portion to kind of cut that out. I'm going to go ahead and hit Finish Sketch. I'm going to extrude. I'm going to select that part. I'm going to select that part. And I'm going to push it all the way, all the way down until it cuts it out. And you can see I'm getting very, very close to what this drawing looks like. This hole in the middle, and it is a hole, it's not just a circle. It's a weird kind of 3-dimensional view of this. If we could see it from the top or from the side, it might have a different way to represent it, but that's a hole that is cut out. It shares the same center point as the circle we just made. So really cool way to utilize the sketch, but it looks like it went away. This is the first time something like this has happened. And as you can start to see, it's a really good time to kind of highlight the different parts of the different menus available in Fusion, because a lot has happened. If you look over here to the feature tree to the left, we now have a body. And if I click on this little eyeball, that allows me to see it or not see it. And not although we don't realize that we have 4 different sketches, but once you make it 3-dimensional, for some reason, and this is like, I think something Fusion should change, it turns off the sketches so they don't kind of get in the way and they don't confuse you and they don't create like chaos in your model. But I can turn them all on or off if I wanted to by going into the feature tree and messing with the vision, right? Can I see them or not? So I'm going to go ahead and put them all back on. I can turn them off later. Notice down here in the timeline, we also have this kind of populated step-by-step what we did. And we can actually walk ourselves backwards in time. And we can use our cursor to kind of drag this point back or all the way forward. And we can go back and make changes, and we can kind of mess with our model as we go. This is a little bit more useful in like iterative design process when you're actually testing parts in the real world to see if they work or not. So we're really close to the end. I know it's a long first video, but we want to take our time in understanding the kind of different places that we can go to in Fusion and getting our first kind of model done using 2-dimensional sketches and only one 3-dimensional feature. We've only used the extrude feature. We've extruded as a solid, and we've extruded to cut out and make negative space. So there's 2 parts to this left. We're going to go to the hole next. That hole, create a sketch. I'm going to pick the top, and I'm going to use that center point. Now I'm going to use a center diameter circle. But I got to remember and kind of go back to my drawing to see that the radius was 7.5. So I got to double that because I picked a center diameter circle. It wants me to put in a diameter. So that diameter would be 15. And if I hover my mouse really close, it is going to let me select the same center point. And now I can type in 15. When I type in 15, I have that circle. This circle is blue, which means I can kind of move it around. That's not awesome. So I'm actually going to stop this right now. This is going to be a really good chance for us to highlight maybe something I should have done in the past. I'm going to go ahead and try to delete this. Are you going to let me? Yeah. And I'm going to go back in time, and I'm going to edit this sketch. What I've done is I've hovered my mouse down here in the timeline, and I right-click, and I go up to Edit Sketch. Excuse me. Edit Sketch, not Redefine Sketch Plane. Edit Sketch. I knew I was going to need two circles, so why not draw them in the same sketch? I don't necessarily have to manipulate both of them right away. But now that I'm in the sketch, I have access to that center point. When I go ahead and I click on center diameter circle, I can go ahead and make that 15. Now that is a fully defined sketch because they share the same center point. And again, geometry review, two of the same shape that share the same center point, those are usually referred to as concentric. And if I hover my mouse over this little icon, that is the concentric icon, which is up there in the constraint menu. Now I'm going to hit finish sketch. I can kind of walk myself forward. That extrude happened. And now I can extrude, grab that center circle, push it all the way down, and cut it out. And there's my hole. All right, one final step. It is to draw this bizarre looking angled line. It's often referred to as a rib. And for the first time, we're going to utilize, or for the second time, excuse me, the fact that we've kind of drawn around the origin. I want to remind you of some things. One, where can I draw sketches? I can draw sketches on anything that is flat. And right now, that could be the face of any of these sides of this three-dimensional object. Notice it. I shouldn't be able to draw a flat sketch on a curved surface. But I can also draw on planes. And right now, those planes are turned off because the origin's little eyeball is turned off. But if I turn it on and I turn off the body, I can see that there's planes here that I can select. And one of them, because I designed around the origin, is right in the middle of that part. And that's kind of where that rib is. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do my best when I hit create sketch to get in there. Now it's hard. So I can turn the body off and the sketches are even in the way. And I can turn that sketch off. And it's this plane right here that I want to pick. I turn the body back on. It doesn't look like I'm drawing in the middle. It looks like I'm drawing on the side. But once I put my line that starts here and ends there, when I change the view, you'll see that that line is actually in the center. Now notice there's nothing closed about this. There's nothing to grab about this triangle that kind of has that highlighted preview because I don't have a closed sketch yet. So I still have to come here with other lines and I have to make my triangle. And when I do, now you can kind of see it previews and highlights this. Gives it just a little bit of a shading to let you know that that is a closed sketch. That is something I can make three-dimensional. I'm going to go ahead and go back to my drawing one more time to see how wide this is. It is a width of 7, right? But since I'm in the middle, in theory, it's like 3.5 towards me and 3.5 away from me. It's not 7 in one direction. It's 7 in a total of 2 directions. Well, we just so happen to have a feature for that. I can go ahead and hit extrude. I have to finish my sketch first. Sketches are turned off. There we go. I can hit extrude, and I can select that. Now, right now, the default up here in direction, up under my extrude menu, is one side, right? And I can push or I can pull. And I could do that to 7, but that's wrong. That's in the wrong spot. It would be awesome if I could go 3.5 in one direction and 3.5 in the other. And there's 2 ways to do that. If I pull down that direction menu, I have 2 sides and I have symmetric. I'm going to pick symmetric. And now wherever I pull in one direction, it goes the same distance in the other. And I know it's a total of 7, so that would be 3.5 in either direction. And I hit OK, and I am technically done with this drawing. Awesome. That is your first Fusion technical drawing. We're going to do another technical drawing in the next video, but we're going to go a little bit quicker. We're going to use all the same exact tools. So awesome. I hope you enjoyed this first video, and good luck moving forward.